Bet you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends, and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride. Steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night. Just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Good morning, folks. It is Tuesday. August 18th. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am the People's Pundit, Rich Barris. You can follow me on Twitter if you don't already, at Peoples_Pundit. All right. So missed yesterday with the kids starting school. That was fun. Statewide login crashed. I'm sure a lot of other parents, millions of other parents had similar problems that we had. All right. And then, of course, we had the Democratic convention kickoff. So we got a lot to talk about. And then economic data that I would have went over with you yesterday. Kind of funny on the backdrop of the convention, folks, because, look at Michelle Obama's speech that, white liberal media, America are fawning over. We're going to take a look at some of these speeches. It just wasn't a good look. All right. Here's the pundit's perspective right off the jump. There's something very not just boring. These conventions can be boring, and they are until the final day, or at least the vice presidential nominee's speech. All right. And they're just a bunch of back and forth. It's production, news, crap. Democrats always have Hollywood come in. Tinseltown helps them. So their convention always looks more glamorous, more production value. I'll tell you what, Cernovich's tweet, man, he's right on. Their convention value seems to have gone down quite a bit since Harvey Weinstein was arrested, all right, and taken out of the picture. It just doesn't look good. I look, for Republicans' sake, I'm hoping for Republicans' sake and for our own that have to go through these things as a job that they make it more interesting. The Democrats have made it. There's something weird. It's more than just boring. It's weird. There's something like creepy about all of these pre-recorded canned speeches through Zoom and Skype that is like almost very anti-American. Like I tweeted yesterday, very anti-American. Just, yeah, like, it's just weird, Laura. It's weird. And, we're not supposed to be like, it's very, this is what I tweeted yesterday. It's like, you guys see the remake of Fahrenheit 451? the temperature at which books burn, of course, right? You see the new remake of it where it's like, everybody be afraid, just stay in your houses, no human interaction, no reading, no social, no social thought or debate. And by the way, every night the camera's going to come on. There's a canned Zoom message from your leaders. Pay attention, listen tentatively. And by the way, don't forget to be afraid. All right. Like there's something very strange. It's awkward. I don't like it. And I'm sure that the optics look, from a political analysis point of view, the optics look really bad for two Americans and, Fox News and CNN and MSNBC. They can go on and on as much as they want about how brilliant Michelle Obama's speech was and how brilliant this was. It's garbage. It looks very weird. I know that the media polls have been like off the rocker this year, so I wouldn't be surprised if there was some bump. I'm just going to say it's not a real one. It's a response bias bump. They are artifacts of the polls themselves and how the polls are conducted. You will almost assuredly see less Republicans want to speak on the phone, and you will get a some sort maybe of bump. But I'm telling you, this is painful to watch. It's not just me. It's not just others. All right. Matt Taibbi, Aaron Mate, Michael Tracy. These are prominent liberal journalists. Michael Tracy, who was on the pandemic train, he tweeted yesterday that he'd rather catch the virus than watch the rest of this, the 3 days of this. I mean, this is how it's painful. Unless you're a diehard liberal and you're dying to see all of these canned production speeches and canned little segments. I mean, the thing with oh my God, that music video thing, that was so bad. It's bad. Regular America doesn't like this kind of stuff. And we're going to, politician, this is an argument Trump is not making that I don't know why, because he's got a bad campaign team. I don't know. But Donald Trump's instincts are always very sharp politically, whether you agree with him or not. And he knows that his best weapon is that, I'm not a politician. I may be the incumbent, but I'm still not a politician. And these are collectives of politicians that are giving you the typical political backward speak. And we're going to show you some of that. I mean, it's not hard to make that kind of case. Americans in the heartland don't like that crap. They don't like it. And we're going to go over it in a little bit. So I told you too, that there would be they would go out and find the Republicans from 2016 that are dying to get their voice back, that are dying to get their party back. It's not going to happen. The DNC reeked of Bill Kristol yesterday, right? It reeked of your very typical neoliberal, neoconservative. That is what, and then it's a fight between that and the Bernie wing that wants to declare victory because they want to get their supporters out for Joe Biden. There was no solutions last night. There was no policy prescriptions. There was just, we all together collectively hate Donald Trump, and that is our argument. You should hate him too. If you don't, there's something wrong with you. Even racist, like Michelle Obama said, which we'll take a look at in a bit. And, I know there are some Americans who don't agree with me. I'm a black woman. Not that you don't agree with me because there were 8 years to test the theory of your politics, which led to the election of Donald Trump. No, if you don't agree with Michelle Obama, you're a racist or a sexist, misogynist, or both. You know what? Both. Bigot. All right. You bigot. Right. You're just a bigot. You're a bigot. Just throw it all in there. Right.
You're an ism or an ist.
That's right. Throw them all in there because you are that. If you're not swayed by my brilliance, then something's wrong with you. At your heart, you're in something, an ist or an ism or something. It's you. It's not me. It's you. If you can't see how bad it is in America today. And we're going to fact check some of what was said, and her whole, we're underperforming as a nation, both economically and morally. Okay. Morally. We're underperforming. Well, we're going to look at some of that today. We just had some data come out. Yesterday I would have went over it with them, and then some more today. Absolutely what I've been telling you folks, housing was about to pop before the pandemic, and it is trying to drag this economy back. I'll tell you why. That's a good sign, and I like it. But also, too, getting back to the convention, which we'll start off with, they were always going to drag these people out. They were going to find the 2%,
the 4%. They were there in 2016, but the show is supposed to tell the story that there are a bunch of people now after 4 years, they just can't tolerate Donald Trump anymore. All right. One of them being the ultimate one, John Kasich, or one of the ultimates, right? Like he's the figurehead for some of these people. And he has no credibility left in the Republican Party. He has no credibility in the Ohio Republican Party anymore because it has since been taken over by Trumpists. All right. Ohio was a state in 2018 where Democrats made no gains. The polls were equally as abysmal, if not worse, than in 2018. Actually, they were worse. Only one poll had Richard Cordray down to Mike DeWine. That was the NBC Marist poll, which was in July. They quickly herded to everybody else. That 2-point lead evaporated and went to Cordray by 5, by 6, by 7. Mike DeWine obviously comfortably won that election, right? So not a single poll had Mike DeWine up. They made no gains in congressional districts. It just didn't happen. Ohio and Florida, they bucked the national trend. They came out, they defended their president at the state and congressional level, and they made no gains. But this is what they're going to do. These are the same faces from 2016. They did not support, contrary to how they're trying to trick the audience, they did not support Donald Trump in 2016. Not only did they not politically support him outspoken, whether it's a matter of being cable news, being surrogates, but John Kasich actually turned, and this is a story you never hear. He had his top lieutenant, which Mr. Weaver. They used the power that they had as him being the governor, and they turned the Republican Party, the Ohio Republican Party, get out the vote operation against Donald Trump. And in areas where Republican suburban voters and outside Franklin County and the suburbs of Franklin, for instance, and they not only abandoned him. I mean, the word was help Hillary Clinton stop Donald Trump in Ohio. Okay, well, Donald Trump went on to win the state of Ohio by the largest margin of any presidential candidate since, I believe, you have to go back to Herbert Walker Bush, maybe. Just check me on that, but it's been decades since anybody won Ohio by those kinds of margins. And he did it by winning the voters that people like John Kasich had isolated for years and years. Yes, he won the primary in the Democratic primary, but he relied on good faith from the home state advantage. Over the years, that good faith is gone. It's shattered. It's gone. Donald Trump is more popular in the state of Ohio than John Kasich is. All right. So he's a man with no party. We're going to look at some of the things he said. Actually, we're not even going to really play that clip specifically from him. Here's John Kasich. All right. At the crossroad. America at the crossroad. All right. Hat tip MSNBC. So give me a freaking break, YouTube. All right. Hat tip MSNBC. Obviously, this is their photo. Okay. And this is John Kasich at the crossroad, as if he just came to this crossroad. All right. He didn't just come here. He's been here. He's been here with his hands down his pants for 5 years. Okay. Nobody is standing with John at that crossroad. So what did he get for his Judas betrayal? He got MSNBC, NBC. They've become such a press release machine for the DNC that they actually spelled his name wrong. They spelled it like Kasich, Kai. All right. They spelled it like a German, which I find to be ironic considering that these are the people who call Trump a Nazi. They literally spelled him like you spell Kaiser. And actually that misspelling came from the DNC docket list. And because they don't even fact check anything from the DNC anymore, they just spit out whatever the DNC tells them to. They just rolled with that docket on NBC and MSNBC. And he's given, right, coming up, John Kasich to deliver, Republican governor of Ohio, John Kasich, to deliver the speech. And during this speech, he says, I know, Joe, it's the measure of a man. And he says, we're the party. I know a lot of you Republicans like me. You're very concerned that Joe Biden has been hijacked by the left-wing radicals and that this will be a far left administration, a socialist administration. And we'll come back to this in a second. But he goes on to say, I know, Joe, and he wouldn't do that. It's the measure of a man. He knows, Joe, because he was a congressman in the 90s, was fighting with the Clinton administration over balancing budget. He was the chairman of the budget committee back then. All right. All of that is down the window. He used to be a conservative budget hawk. That's all down the window. That legacy is now gone. He has forfeited that legacy and thrown it all away to have his name misspelled on NBC. Laura's dying to get in here. Let me give her something to say here.
Oh man, I just have to mention this. They misspelled his name, said his name wrong, but God help you if you say Kamala, whatever, Harris.
That's so true. That's so true. Right. You can't, God help you if you misspell Kamala or mispronounce it or whatever. But you can say his name like in the German sense. Anyway, this was what I'm talking about with typical politicians. This is John Kasich. All right. In 2012. All right. This is what he had to say about Joe Biden, someone he's known for decades and decades and decades.
But Joe Biden told me that he was a good golfer. And I played golf with Joe Biden. I can tell you that's not true, as well as all the other things that he says.
So now Joe Biden is the personification of honesty and decency. But just 8 years ago, you couldn't rely on anything Joe Biden said. So for Mitt Romney, John Kasich will get up on the stage at a Republican convention for Mitt Romney, and he will call Joe Biden a liar. All right. He lied about being a good golfer, and he lies about everything else. I mean, that line, of course, fell flat. It was a stupid line. All right. It wasn't going to convince anybody to vote for Mitt Romney. All right. And just like this speech wasn't going to convince anybody to vote for Joe Biden, who otherwise may have voted for Donald Trump. So all we have left here is a man willing this is a sad story. The sad story of a son of a mailman who rose to be a rising star in the Republican Party, a governor of one of the nation's key battleground states, just turning into a turncoat. All right. I don't really care whether people flip from the right or from the left. I mean, you have to have some kind of like sincerity when you do it, right? There has to be some sincere, like reasoning behind it. And I mean, there has to be some kind of vetting and debate involved. That does not happen. Anybody can commit any sin to the left and to the mainstream media, as long as you betray that and flip and go against Donald Trump. If you become anti-Trump, you can be forgiven. Like Christ forgave our sins for any other prior political sin that you have committed against the Democratic National Party and the media and anybody else who they say is in this society is aggrieved and has been wrong. All right. One more time for the crowd, folks. One more time. This is John Kasich for his friend. And this is the key here. This is what he'll say for his friend, Mitt Romney, but not for Donald Trump.
But Joe Biden told me that he was a good golfer. And I played golf with Joe Biden. I can tell you that's not true, as well as all the other things that he says.
So Joe Biden is a liar when he's on the ticket against his friends, but he is he's like Father Joe, all right, who can't tell a lie. And, he's, because he brought up faith and everything, it's about faith. And give me a freaking break. You are a small little man, just like your friend Mitt Romney, who is still bitter because you got your butt kicked by somebody you didn't invite to the party. So somebody who's not in your club, he came in, he took over your party because he spoke to the people that you wronged and ignored for years. I don't know what these people expected. You're still not getting your party back if Donald Trump loses in November. You're not getting your party back, John. Mitt, you're not getting your party back. Bill, you're not getting your party back. You lied to the base for decades. Just elect us and we'll do this. Elect us and we'll stop Obamacare. Remember that? Nominate Mitt Romney. He's the only one who can defeat Barack Obama. Remember that, John? You lied to them for years. and you refuse to admit you are the cause of all of this. Donald Trump is not the cause. He's the product of your lies. You left them. Never mind. You know, I mean, this is just crazy. And they go on. This is all of this crap is their inability to admit what they did. Their wrongs against their own people, their wrongs, and they just can't bring themselves to admit it. And I will say this real quick. I want to bring in, let me run this thing. They had to destroy this guy circa 2015 and before. This man would have, people always ask me, who else running for president could have defeated Hillary Clinton? The answer was nobody. Maybe Scott Walker if he was ready for prime time, because no other candidate had the ability to smash through the blue wall in the Midwest and then still hold those other states like Florida that you have to hold. And in fact, Donald Trump won so many electoral votes, he didn't need Florida. I would argue right now he absolutely does need Florida, because there are other states in the Midwest that are going to be harder to hold on to. All right. I mean, Florida is pretty clear, regardless of media polling. I think it's pretty clear Florida, it leans Donald Trump. But there was one other man who, if they didn't viciously attack him with this now court debunked conspiracy, which is what they ran with last night. There were no proposals. It was like one conspiracy theory against Donald Trump after the other. I don't understand something. If he's such a horrible person and so bad for the country, why we can't just debate policy? I find so many things that we could criticize Donald Trump about on policy. We can have that debate, but Democrats are unwilling to go there. They just rehatch these crazy conspiracy theories and the new ones, and which we'll talk about too. But here, there is one man who could have done it, and they knew it. And that's why they destroyed him with Bridgegate. Chris Christie was going to destroy Hillary Clinton, destroy her. Okay. Chris Christie did something that no Republican has done in many, 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 many years, build a broad coalition among not just the typical conservative base, but the suburban Republican voter, as well as even inner city voters. And he did that through relationships, hard work on the ground, and they had to destroy him for it. And he was a very normal spoken American, working kind of class. Laura will tell you, years ago in Jersey, which we lived for many years, I had said, Chris Christie, he was like a nobody. Chris Christie, people would say, Corzine is deeply unpopular. Who can we get to defeat John Corzine? And the first person out of my mouth was Chris Christie. Go convince Chris Christie to run for governor, because he is the kind of guy Jersey and like average working Americans can relate to. And they had to destroy him. But here's Chris Christie on John Kasich. I love this. Good. Governor, good for you.
Chris Christie, 4 years ago, Meg Whitman, Christie Todd Whitman both endorsed Hillary Clinton. So how big a threat are these Republican endorsements tonight?
Zero. I mean, they're meaningless. They weren't with her. They were with her 4 years ago. Now they're with Biden. No surprise. And John Kasich, just to show you where John Kasich's standing is in the Republican Party, when he was the only Republican governor left on the stage in 2016, Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, and John Kasich, the three candidates left. Do you know how many Republican governors of his colleagues, his sitting colleagues at the time, endorsed John Kasich? Zero. And the reason they didn't endorse him is because he's a backstabber and he's an untruthful guy. And so tonight, Republicans are going to look at that and go, you can have him. Please believe me. Give us a break. Get him out of our party. You take him for a little while. Because on top of all that, I've worked with John a lot. He's exhausting. Joe Biden's going to be getting calls from John Kasich. He's going to want to change his phone number.
Witchfinder, fantastic question. I told Laura to put that in the queue. Good for you, Governor. Good for you. He's the only one you could really count on to like go on TV and say something that's like everybody knows, but they are hiding from the American people for some reason, for whatever reason it is. Chris Christie will go on that and he will just like, he'll open up the bag and he'll just say, oh, you didn't tell them this? You didn't? No, nobody likes John Kasich. Hello. He has no friends. He's a liar. He lies to everybody. Who gives a damn what John Kasich thinks? And the answer is nobody. And I have to tell you this, folks. again, the main thing that you should take away from what Governor Christie just said right there was that this is like some fictitious thing. They're running this scam on you. Like, this is new. These people didn't support Donald Trump in 2016. The difference now, only difference, is that he's shilling for a job on MSNBC and wherever else he can get it. He used, when he still had influence, he used that influence in Ohio, and he turned it against Donald Trump. He turned the get out the vote operation against Donald Trump in the state of Ohio. Now, did everybody listen to him? No, but those precincts where Donald Trump fell shy, of Mitt Romney's numbers in some of these areas, and so the suburban Romney voter, right? The one that you need to beg to go out and vote so you could maybe carry Ohio by 2 points. Maybe. If not, you'll lose it by about 2 points. Even if you try to crank out the vote with them and you don't win over the other voters that Barack Obama was magical at speaking to, that Donald Trump was magical, and I would argue even more magical. And that's why Ohio went for Donald Trump by 9 points, while it only went for Barack Obama by 2. All right. And by the way, Obama did win it by a larger margin in 2008. He won it by about 5 points. And that was seen as big back then, 4.5 or something. That was seen as a large victory in the state of Ohio, which was the quintessential battleground state. Here Donald Trump comes. He's got the world against him. The only thing Donald Trump had with him were those working class Americans that hadn't voted for a Republican. Really? Since Ronald Reagan begged them to do so in 1988 for George Herbert Walker Bush. And they were different, of course, Americans, same kind of demographics. But Reagan had the previous record as far as vote share with these kinds of working demographics. And Donald Trump beat it. He beat it. So who gives a damn about John Kasich and his daddy, the postman? I mean, this is a freaking joke. This is a scam. This is a scam. All right, so let's move on to some of the other ones because I heard no policy prescription out of John Kasich's mouth. What I did hear was a slimy politician who was willing to trash Joe Biden in 2012 for his buddy Mitt Romney, but because him and his buddy Mitt feel slighted and they're jealous that they didn't win. I mean, really, they are this small, folks. This is that simple. This is not a deep ideological argument. This is two things. They have benefactors and have for many years who scream in their ear about, how could you let Donald Trump put the working man above us? How could you not stop him? And then two, their own little egos. They're small people, tiny, tiny people. You want to have a real policy. You have real policy problems with Donald Trump. Bring something up. But don't talk to me about morality. When 8 years ago, you were calling the man a liar. Nothing. He tells the truth about nothing. Not even how good of a golfer he is. And now all of a sudden you're praising him as a man of faith and great integrity. Yeah. I mean, it's a joke, Lord. I mean, and then you're going to try to use morality on me as to why, and others, as to why, you should not vote for Donald Trump. He's an immoral person. I'm a freaking liar. And I'll tell you 2 stories depending on who's running. But listen to me about morality. Take your postman stories and stick them, John. Such a loser. Anyway, he's irrelevant.
It's his little ego that got hurt, so he wasn't picked for president.
That's it. He was rejected. And believe me, folks, you have to have a certain kind of ego to do this. You really do. And so it's not surprising. But that's how they'll treat a traitor or a Judas on one side. All right. At least there are people who, turn allegiances, but at least they'll try to make policy arguments. All right. And they'll say, as a matter of economics, as a matter of results, I'm going to support Donald Trump, even though I'm a Democrat. And this is how they are treated when they fall off the plantation. All
on
right.
the right have acknowledged that he inherited from the previous administration.
Well, that's fake news.
Well,
that's
we're
fake
not
news
doing that. We're not doing that.
If you look at the unemployment among African Americans during his years and during the Obama years, clearly it was much better. If you look at opportunity zone districts, if you look at support and financial support to historical colleges, clearly it's better off under his administration than the previous administration. So, I don't want to get caught into politics.
Well,
just because I'm a Democrat, my party feels though that
I like to traffic in facts, and much of what you just said is patently false. But I do want to. Representative Jones, this is my show. I'll ask questions. Give me a second.
Well, you had me on your show.
I know,
but don't cut me off when I'm giving an answer.
I'm not cutting you off, but I do want. Are you a paid campaign surrogate? Are you being compensated?
Let me be clear. You get paid to shape a liberal narrative. You get paid to attack this president. I don't get a dime for this president. I don't get a dime from the campaign. Everything I've done has been me and based on my principles. And see, that's the problem. When an African American that's elected official,
I did not raise your
race. Let me finish now. Let me finish.
Whoa. You're not going to imply that I asked that question because you're black.
So don't ask me that. You only ask me that because I don't fit your narrative. This president never offered anything. I don't want anything from this president. It's what I can do for my country. And you need to accept that many other African Americans and others support this president because of his policies. And to insult me to say, am I getting paid?
I've asked the same question. I've asked the same question
and that's
of
Democrats
who come on.
MSNBC and their narrative to keep blacks silent who happen to support this president. Why can't I be like white liberals or other whites? Nobody questioned they're getting paid. So I have to get paid. Do you ask Democrats? Do they get paid?
I just said if you
paid by Joe Biden.
I just said to you.
Have you ever asked any host on your show that they've been paid by Joe Biden?
State Representative Vernon Jones. Representative Jones, thank you. Do come back. An open invitation.
I love to come back.
No, he doesn't ask them. Did he ask John Kasich if he was paid? And then first of all, I gotta address this claim again. And he says, oh, what you just said, much of what I traffic in facts, and much of what you just said is patently false. Nothing he said is false. Folks, if you watch Inside the Numbers, you know, if you read PPD, you know. We have gone over this before. I'll link it actually in the YouTube just because I want to address this again. Barack Obama did not hand off this economy to Donald Trump. African-American unemployment is not the same under Barack Obama than it is and was under Donald Trump. Under Barack Obama, when you leave the labor force and labor force participation falls, it is a methodological gimmick. It's a gimmick that the unemployment rate fell under Barack Obama. We've been over this now ad nauseum. Under Donald Trump, wages for African Americans. Under Donald Trump, labor force participation for African Americans. Under Donald Trump, the employment population ratio for African Americans all increased while the jobless rate fell. That is not the same as when they exit the labor force and there are methodological gimmicks and the unemployment rate falls. We have been over this now ad nauseum. It is false to say that trend started under Barack Obama. That is false. And I would debate that guy in a second. Give me 2 minutes and I'll destroy you on your own show. Okay? I mean, this is ridiculous. This is 2 minutes and I'll destroy you. No graphs needed, no nothing. The numbers are in my head. I will drill the dates into your brain. This is, I'm so sick and tired of this. He says what you just said is fake news. Fake news. Vernon, God bless you, man. God bless you. All right, folks, I'll be back in 30 seconds. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we're back. Thanks for quick 30-second break. Don't forget to like the page on Facebook, People's Pundit Daily. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube to People's Pundit Daily, and you'll get a notification when Inside the Numbers goes live. Of course, the best way, to support the show is to become a subscriber on PPD, which you can do by going to ppdnews.us/subscribe. ppdnews.us/subscribe. To all of you who have done that since we started the show, clearly a trend upward. We love you for it, and thank you. All right. You can tell, guys, that I absolutely hate going over that spiel with you, but I have to do it. All right. So anyway, just on that thing, real quick. All right. If everyone would bear with me for a second. All right. Just on that claim, I'm telling you, I will debate anybody on this. This is a total joke, and I am sick and tired of hearing it. If you haven't read it, on PPD, you can get it right here. There it is. All right. Why credit for the decline in black unemployment goes to Trump, not Obama. And I went over this. It's not a partisan. This isn't a matter of party affiliation. Labor force participation influences the unemployment rate, resulting in methodological gimmicks. This is the trend, as you can see in civilian unemployment rates. Here is Barack Obama. He took over as the Great Recession was ending, by the way. Yes, you can clearly see the falling trend. All right. Here, if you go down a little bit more and just study these things, this is what you could do if you do. I mean, this is part of the meter. So if you wanted to go right now and you haven't hit your limit, you'll get it. But here, as you can see, the civilian labor force participation under Barack Obama collapsed and continued to collapse. And if you remember, we were told that it was older seniors exiting the labor force, and that was part of it. But it was never the entire story. Never the entire story. This is the great thing about PPD, folks. You don't have to listen to their BS. You can go back. We don't influence what you think. These are the numbers. All right. As we can tell from the charted data above, the pace of recovery in the labor market was very weak under Mr. Obama. Unemployment for all groups struggled to make progress without significant reversals. Black unemployment was as high as 14.2% as recently as June 2013, hitting resistance at around 8%. It only broke those resistance levels as labor force participation declined, which you can clearly correlate on the map on the chart here. That is the labor force participation for all demographic groups and the total. The unemployment rate will decline if people exit the labor force, meaning workers retire or give up on the American dream. As labor participation declines, unemployment will also decline. That is how the BLS methodology works. Under Mr. Obama, the trend was clear, and his supporters sought to explain it away with demographic changes. That was partially true. Baby boom retirements assuredly contributed, but it was not the full picture. When labor force participation and the equally important but less cited employment population ratio rises, and yet unemployment continues to fall as people enter the labor force, it's a far stronger labor market. That is a truly tight labor market. Put plainly, it's real. It's not a gimmick. It's also worth pointing out the increase in labor force participation for all races after Mr. Obama's tenure is occurring despite those dastardly demographic pressures. As a result, we are seeing real wage growth for the first time since the Great Recession. Wages rose by 3% in only the fourth quarter of 2018. That was the first time since 2009. They were stagnant, flat, abysmal under Obama, and have risen by 3% or greater at the time I wrote this for 7 consecutive months. That went on for 19 straight months. We've had 1 month blip, and now we're back. The pandemic. And that was only the result of a lot of those lower paying jobs that were crushed during the pandemic. When they raced back into the employment, when they got their job, the payroll protection program, when they raced back to the labor force, it created downward pressure for 1 month. That's it. The Labor Department tried to explain this in their press release last month, that wages were distorted because those people returned in mass. That's real wage pressure as a result of a real tight labor market with very strong demand, which is why we saw jobless claims. A tight labor market for jobless claims is 300,000.
Under Donald Trump, they tipped under that several times and remained around 200,000. They tipped below 200K multiple times. Multi-decade lows. Under Barack Obama, they repeatedly threatened to touch 300,000. Repeatedly. And it was only because of this pandemic that the insured unemployment rate popped off the all-time low or near all-time low. The all-time low was 1.1. Hit that under Donald Trump. Only popped out of 1.2 momentarily to retouch that all-time low. That is a strong labor market. That is real. And by the way, miraculously, after the benefits run out, the initial jobless claims began collapsing again last week. And pray to God we see it again on Thursday. But this is a farce. This is a fraud. He inherited this economy. And they're going to have to do better than these canned Zoom speeches to make that case. Because the data coming out, which we'll go over in a little bit, is even better than I thought it was. As you all know, I was opposed to the stupid idea of shutting down this economy. Never in the history of the world. The decline in the black unemployment rate under Donald Trump was and is being driven by positive labor market conditions. The decline under Barack Obama was largely a methodological gimmick. End of story. Full stop. All right, moving on. Let's take a look at more of convention highlights. Right? Sounds good. So as John Kasich, right, on NBC, as John Kasich is telling Republicans who are uneasy with Donald Trump, by the way, the proof is in the numbers, Laura. The proof is in the numbers. The man, whether you like him or not, the man has both historic high total vote shares in primary states for an largely uncontested president, and historic high vote shares. New Hampshire, that is the state where you will see an incumbent that is weak. All right. You are going to get real, people on the ballot. There will be protest votes. That is the state. If there is going to be a protest, a real significant challenge from the president's own base, and there's going to be any indication that the base is unhappy with him or the party as overall is unhappy with him, that will come in the state of New Hampshire. It has historically been the case. Well, Donald Trump surpassed Bill Clinton, who was number 2. Actually, as the night went on, he surpassed Barack Obama, who was number 3. He surpassed Bill Clinton, who was number 2. And he surpassed Ronald Reagan, who was number 1. There is no base frustration. John Kasich is the 2 to 4%. The proof is in the pudding. You'll have to beat him with independence because you're not going to beat him like this. You're just not. I mean, you could delude yourself, which we're going to see. There's a lot of deluding. You could delude yourself, knock yourself out. It doesn't bother me. You want to live in la la land, the conspiracy theory land? Knock yourself out. But there are no John Kasichs. There are not enough John Kasich. There are not enough of the people that, I don't know how much money you spent to go out and find them. There aren't enough people in those clips and videos, and no doubt, most assuredly, we'll hear more of them as the week goes on. But there aren't enough of them to defeat Donald Trump. You better fill in ballots from other people. All right, let's listen. Keynote. So John Kasich is saying they're not going to go too far to the left. I know Joe. He's a great guy. Don't worry about socialism. Don't worry about the riots. Don't worry about all this. He's a great guy. Not an hour later, the keynote speech from Bernie Sanders comes on and he declares victory. It's only about 3 minutes. Let's watch the whole thing because it's important. There are a couple of things I want to address in it. Just put it up against the backdrop of John Kasich saying he knows Joe Biden. He's a great man. And, he would never go too far to the left. All right. Just remember that as we're watching this.
In an unprecedented moment, we're facing the worst public health crisis in 100 years and the worst economic collapse since the Great Depression. We are confronting systemic racism and the enormous threat to our planet of climate change. And in the midst of all of this, we have a president who is not only incapable of addressing these crises, but is leading us down the path of authoritarianism. This election is the most important in the modern history of this country. In response to the unprecedented crises we face, we need an unprecedented response, a movement like never before of people who are prepared to stand up and fight for democracy and decency and against greed, oligarchy, and bigotry. And we need Joe Biden as our next president. Let me take this opportunity to say a word to the millions of people who supported my campaign this year and in 2016. My friends, thank you for your trust, your support, and the love you showed Jane, me, and our family. Together, we have moved this country in a bold new direction, showing that all of us, black and white, Latino, Native American, Asian American, gay and straight, native-born and immigrant, yearn for a nation based on the principles of justice, love, and compassion. Our campaign ended several months ago, but our movement continues and is getting stronger every day. Many of the ideas we fought for that just a few years ago were considered radical are now mainstream. But let us be clear. If Donald Trump is reelected, all the progress we have made will be in jeopardy. At its most basic, this election is about preserving our democracy. During this president's term, the unthinkable has become normal. He has tried to prevent people from voting, undermined the U.S. Postal Service, deployed the military and federal agents against peaceful protesters, threatened to delay the election, and suggested that he will not leave office if he loses. This is not normal, and we must never treat it like it is. Under this administration, authoritarianism has taken root in our country. I and my family, and many of yours, know the insidious way authoritarianism destroys democracy, decency, and humanity. As long as I am here, I will work with progressives, with moderates, and yes, with conservatives to preserve this nation from a threat that so many of our heroes fought and died to defeat.
There is something inherently hilarious or odd about a communist warning about authoritarianism.
It's unprecedented.
It's how many times did he say, anybody count that? How many times did he say the word unprecedented? All right. There's a lot of unprecedented. Oh, believe me, I've been watching. I think we all see how unprecedented this election, or really, how unprecedented the actions have been, as a reaction to the election of this man 3.5 years ago, or 4 years ago almost now. That's what's unprecedented. The willingness to destroy everything and anything that we have and know as a norm and institution that we hold dear, principles, in order to resist this man. That is what I see as unprecedented. And Bernie must have broken the Guinness Book of World Records for the most conspiracy theories packed into a single sentence. He threw it all in there, folks. Trump is going to not leave office. The Postal Service thing now. Even former Bernie supporters in media, like the Aaron Mates, the Glenn Greenwalds, they have even said this is like the new Russia collusion conspiracy. And their guy just used it. Not a single policy. The only mention he made of policies was a direct contradiction to John Kasich, who said that Joe would not go radical. He was taking a victory lap and saying, vote for Joe Biden because what has been considered radical is now mainstream in this party. Okay? That's what he said. That is what he said. Medicare for all is not mainstream in Battleground America. It's not. All right. Anti-Cuba, or pro, I should say, Castro Cuba is not mainstream in Florida. All right. We could just keep going on and on and on. He said, people who supported my campaign this time around and in 2016. I think the data, when you pour over the actual voting data from 2016 and 2020, I think the conclusion for Bernie as his coalition goes is pretty clear. Bernie lost this nomination for two reasons. One, talk about an unprecedented effort to stop the front runner who was going to win and paint him as unelectable. The party, the voters wanted Bernie Sanders. They did not want Joe Biden. The voter analysis, the exit polls, also crystal clear on this. They simply were led to believe, they were convinced by the media in the 2 weeks that Joe won South Carolina. They were convinced that he could not defeat Donald Trump. And that is it. But if you look at who supported who liked who, which policies they agreed with, overwhelmingly, Democratic primary voters, their heart was with Bernie, not with Joe Biden. All right. And then the second reason why he lost was the voting data is clear. Bernie Sanders went too anti-Trump after 2016. We now know it is not like once upon a time, one of my talking points that I tried to convince everybody was true. Now it's so-called conventional wisdom. Bernie voters in 2016 who backed him over Hillary Clinton, too many of them voted for Donald Trump in Michigan. Too many of them voted for Donald Trump in Pennsylvania. Too many of them voted for Donald Trump in Wisconsin. Too many of them voted for Donald Trump in Ohio. Too many of them voted for Donald Trump in Iowa, and so on and so forth. Since 2016, he abandoned them on a lot of issues that they thought he was their guy on. He had an A rating from the NRA most of his political career. He talked about the negative consequences that unfettered immigration has on the American worker. He railed against trade deals that now his guy, Joe Biden, voted for each and every single one of them. Those voters in 2016 were missing from his coalition in 2020 running against Joe Biden. Why? Because they now are Donald Trump voters. If you look at the maps and overlay them, folks, Hillary Clinton won the urban areas. And he was winning some urban and the rural coalition of working Democrats. In 2020, he got clobbered in the same areas that he relied on to carry Hillary against Hillary Clinton. His stunning upset in Michigan, he got clobbered in Michigan. Those voters are now Donald Trump voters. And apparently, if you look at the polling, there's still going to be a bunch that are going to go with Donald Trump. Joe Biden's performance in Pennsylvania was horrible. His percentage of the electorate after an election, a primary election, that was a nomination that was all but over for 3.5 months. For all intents and purposes, it was over. And yet he still lost a fifth of the electorate to Bernie Sanders. Another 3% to Tulsi Gabbard. I mean, that's not good. But what did the articles all say? The big media pundits, they all wrote about how Bill Weld took a few percent from Donald Trump. I mean, it's such a joke. It's a total joke. But I heard not a single policy prescription for a voter to say, okay, you know what? We're going to vote for Joe Biden because he's going to help my situation. It was just fear. It was just fear. So all of these people who have slammed Joe Biden in the past, Kamala Harris is his running mate now. It was 6 months ago, folks, she called Joe Biden a racist. That little girl was me. You did that to me, Joe. You oppressed me when I was a little girl. It's totally ridiculous. John Kasich, 2012. Joe told me he was a good golfer. He lied. He lies about everything else, too. Now, he's a great guy, a man of faith. You can put your faith in him. I will say this, and Bernie is a special kind of animal. He was the leader of a movement. He lost most of his movement to Donald Trump, really. And his new coalition is not going to be any happier than the last one, because he could have beaten Joe Biden. He could have, but he was like Hillary Clinton. He was unwilling to do what was necessary to win. And I don't even mean something immoral. He was unwilling to fight hard enough for his own voters who stood out in lines and waited in lines for hours in the cold in Iowa, in the snow in Iowa, in the snow in New Hampshire, in freezing cold temperatures, to listen to him and support him. He was unwilling to show them that same level of dedication, because in the end, Bernie is a company man. He is no maverick. He is no independent. He is a company guy. He was a company guy in 2016 when he moped up to the microphone and supported Hillary Clinton with thousands and thousands of protesters outside. And if they had a physical convention and were doing it again, no doubt you would see more that they would hide from you. I will say this. Michelle Obama, at least, has never really trashed Joe Biden, right? I mean, not like that. Not like we have heard other people do that are now on the Biden bandwagon, right? Not like that. Like, you're a racist. You're this, you're that. At least Michelle Obama is someone who can go up to the microphone with credibility and say, you know, and as my husband's vice president, I know Joe. Let me speak about his character like this. I got to tell you, folks, I'm not seeing this strategy. I'm not seeing this strategy that the Democrats are using. There's no policy. It's just a massive amount of social pressure, social desirability bias. Like, you are a bad person if you don't agree with us. You are a bad person if you put your own self-interest first, instead of this like ethereal morality, that, you know, sense of morality. So anyway, so it was at least credible for Michelle Obama to say what a great guy Joe Biden is. And she said, you know, he's a wonderful man, you know, someone you can put your faith in. All right, here it is.
I want to start by thanking Harvey Weinstein for organizing this amazing day. Harvey. This is possible because of Harvey. He is a wonderful human being, a good friend, and just a powerhouse. And the fact that he and his team took the time to make this happen for all of you should say something, not about me or about this place, but about you. All right, everybody, we are here because of you.
Whoops. That wasn't her praising the character of Joe Biden. That was her praising the character of Harvey Weinstein, who is now, you know, as we all know, a sexual deviant and predator and a fat slob who used his authority to sleep and force beautiful women who he has no business touching to sleep with him. That is the kind of character that Michelle Obama praised in the past. But it basically was verbatim how she started off with Joe Biden. All right. Like I said, conventions are always production. But this one was particularly bad. I really couldn't stomach much of it. It's not just a hypocrisy, which you'll see in everyone's convention, you know. But this is like no mention of any of this stuff. No mention of the riots, which is supposed to be talking about morality. No mention of the riots that have led to the deaths of police officers, to the wholesale attacks on police officers. No mention of nothing. And you're going to preach to us about morality. Not a single policy proposal, nothing. I mean, you know, but morality, just issues of morality. I think it's fair game. If you're going to basically plagiarize your own speech praising Harvey Weinstein and you're going to copy and paste it to Joe Biden, I think it's fair game that we discuss how you praised a sexual predator and deviant. And by the way, before we go to a break, guess who's speaking tonight? Bill Clinton. You have got to be joking. You have got to be kidding. Anyway, you're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am the People's Pundit, Rich Barris. Follow me on Twitter if you don't already, at People's_Pundit. Don't forget to like the page on Facebook, folks, and don't forget to subscribe to People's Pundit Daily on YouTube. We're getting those numbers beefed up, and I'm loving you for it. Love you guys back. Really do. This is cool. And then, of course, the ultimate way to support the show is to subscribe to People's Pundit Daily, which you can do by going to ppdnews.us/subscribe. ppdnews.us/subscribe. All right, we'll wrap up the convention when we come back. We'll look at some economic data, and then we'll answer your questions. So get your questions in, all right? We'll be back for, she's already signaled. We'll be back for a 2-minute break after Bad Habit by the Grammy considered Bowen Band.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
All right, we're back with your bad habit. Let's wrap up Michelle Obama's speech. We'll get into that a little bit, blow through some economic indicators, and then let the question Nazi take over. All right. And she also said she had something to say after this Michelle Obama thing. I gather from her Twitter response last night that she does. All right. So get those questions into Laura, either on whatever you're watching, Periscope, YouTube, Facebook. By the way, I sent the YouTube link out. It's just a better stream, folks. If scoot on over from Periscope, if you can, I'll shoot it out again while Michelle Obama is talking. And then we'll discuss some of the things that I thought were noteworthy with her speech.
That greed is good and winning is everything, because as long as you come out on top, it doesn't matter what happens to everyone else. And they see what happens when that lack of empathy is ginned up into outright disdain. They see our leaders labeling fellow citizens enemies of the state while emboldening torch-bearing white supremacists. They watch in horror as children are torn from their families and thrown into cages, and pepper spray and rubber bullets are used on peaceful protesters for a photo op. Sadly, this is the America that is on display for the next generation. A nation that's underperforming not simply on matters of policy, but on matters of character. And that's not just disappointing, it's downright infuriating. Because I know the goodness and the grace that is out there.
All right. I had to stop it because it was making me sick to my stomach. All right. First of all, we were supposed to play that from the very beginning. And if you would have, and then if I didn't get sick to my stomach, I would have played it where she says, I know that some of you will not hear this plea because I'm a black woman. All right. So in other words, if, and we'll talk more about some of the other stuff she said, but if you think that you're doing better under Donald Trump financially, and your family is doing better under Donald Trump than you did under her husband, then of course you're a racist. Because only a racist wouldn't listen to a black woman. The only reason in her mind that possibly you would disagree with her is because you have hate in your heart. You cannot find yourself. You're not big enough. You're not forward thinking enough to take advice from a black woman. I thought this was particularly disgusting because for those of you who know me, this is something that I'm big on. We will never get past certain things in this country as long as there is one political party who needs racial division to win. As long as we have a political party who relies on racial division and racial hatred to win elections, like her husband did, we will never get anywhere. And the sad truth is, the Michelle Obamas, the Barack Obamas, and the Democratic Party as a whole. And look, I personally like a lot of Democrats. I mean, that's just not what I'm talking. They need this. They need to perpetuate this. We haven't heard a damn policy yet. Maybe some of you are new and you don't remember. Maybe you're new to the political scene and you don't remember. What I used to love about politics and I'm a numbers guy, was the policy debate that we used to have in this country. As long as one party refuses to engage in an actual debate over policies and results, and instead they seek to distract certain portions of the electorate with racial hatred and division, we're not going to get anywhere. Never. Why did Keith Ellison hide those tapes from us with George Floyd? Why did Keith Ellison not give the American public the entire picture about what happened during the arrest and the death of George Floyd? What other possible explanation, aside from wanting to incite racial hatred, civil unrest, what possible explanation could you have for not giving the rest of the picture to the American public? Don't give me this crap. Well, he's law enforcement, can't, put out evidence. You can if it's one-sided. If it pushes your narrative, they have no problem releasing that. So don't give me that crap. Cities were burning. Police officers were dying. They were being attacked. Unarmed, innocent civilians, like that horrible tape we saw the other day of the truck driver, are under assault. Their safety, liberty, and security are being threatened. And we intentionally inflamed racial hatred, division, and suspicion. And that is what Michelle Obama did. Let's look at some of the factual things that she said. Okay. And whoops, I just hit the wrong thing. She said, first and foremost, the country is underperforming, and we'll get to that in a second, both morally and economically. All right. And policy-wise. All right. Morally, from somebody who praised Harvey Weinstein, I don't want to lecture about morality. That's number one. Number two, we'll get to the economic stuff later. We got to some of it before. We'll get to the economic stuff later. And then there was again, this is why this is like the convention of conspiracy theories. The Bernie Sanders, every single conspiracy theory over the last 3 years, he lumped into a single sentence. It was unbelievable. Michelle Obama tried to outdo him there with the Nazi thing. You know, she was talking about while praising white supremacists, putting kids in cages. Even the AP fact-checked Michelle Obama on that. And I'm going to read this to you while I wait. Give me a hot minute while it loads up here. But manufacturer, yeah, that's the one I want for. There's one story too that I'm trying to grab up here. We did this a while ago in response to some of the more egregious things that the media has pushed for the Democratic Party to make Trump look like a racist because his approval rating among certain minority groups was just getting too high. All right, and we talk, you know, we've gone over this actually on the show before, but we really have to do this again because Michelle Obama went right back to it. And we'll look at the entire transcript. I'm not sure someone as intelligent as Michelle Obama. Joe Biden, when we went over it last time, was because Joe Biden repeated it, right? And it was a lie. All right. But I'm not sure. Joe Biden has lost his mental faculties. He's gone. He's out to lunch. He's never coming back. That's it. Put a sign on the door. It's over. If you vote for Joe Biden, you're voting for Kamala Harris. I mean, that's it. All right. But the bottom line is Michelle Obama, her faculties appear to still be there. She hates politics. Are you serious? How cynical could you be? Are we really supposed to believe that Michelle Obama doesn't know she's lying when she says Donald Trump praised white supremacists at Charlottesville? Are we really supposed to believe that Michelle Obama doesn't know she's lying when she says Donald Trump puts kids in cages? The kids in cages policy, family separation, started under the Obama administration. The kids in cages photo that made its way all over social media was from 2014. That was a photo taken under the Obama administration. This is crazy. Again, even the AP fact checked. And she said they watch in horror as children are torn from their families and thrown into cages. The AP says the facts. The reference to cages is misleading in a manner that Democrats have persistently distorted. Trump used facilities that were built during the Obama-Biden administration to house children at the border. They are chain-linked enclosures inside border facilities where migrants were temporarily housed, separated by sex and age. At the height of the controversy over the Trump zero-tolerance policy at the border, photos that circulated online of children in the enclosures generated great anger. But those photos, by the Associated Press itself, by the way, were taken in 2014 and depicted some of the thousands of unaccompanied children held by President Barack Obama. I just cannot believe a woman of her so-called intelligence, anyway, maybe I should say, because, I mean, really, you're not really performing because somebody gives you a hospital administrator job for $350,000 a year to do nothing. You didn't earn that in the private sector. Let's get real here. All right. So maybe I'm overstating the former First Lady's intelligence, but that is not true. All right. Yes, Trump's continued the policies of the Obama-Biden administration. That part is correct. But we were separating. If anybody would take the time to talk to border agents like we did, they would know children were separated at the border for a host of reasons, and many, and not least of which, was that many of these children were not the children of the adults that they were accompanied with. You could literally rent kids, folks, to walk across the border with so you could get in. Those kids are then smuggled back, and the Border Patrol were seeing the same kids over and over and over and over and over again. That's why the DNA pilot testing program was put in. Pilot program was put in, where they would actually test to see whether or not these children belong to those parents. Go look it up. You'll be stunned at the numbers yourself. And then secondly, to this claim that Donald Trump praised white supremacists while putting migrant children in cages. To that claim, this is the day she is talking about. We had the Charlottesville clash, and Donald Trump is giving a press conference. And actually, he was talking about the statues because that is what there was a protest there by people defending the statues, Confederate statues. They were, whether you like it or not, or you agree with their position or not, is irrelevant. They were a lawful assembly with a permit. The counter protests by Antifa and others were not a lawful assembly. And this is what happened at this press conference. Donald Trump interrupts and he says, "Excuse me, they didn't put themselves down as neo-Nazis. And you had some very bad people." And he means, why did they get a permit? They didn't put themselves down as neo-Nazis. And you had some very bad people in that group. But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group, and they're trying to interrupt. So he says, excuse me. I saw the same pictures as you did. You had people in that group that were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very, very important statue and the renaming of a park from Robert E. Lee to another name. Reporter jumps in. He says, George Washington and Robert E. Lee are not the same. And Donald Trump responds, "Oh no, George Washington was a slave owner. Was George Washington a slave owner? So will, sorry about that. So will George Washington now lose his status? Are we going to take down, excuse me," he's interrupting again. Are we going to take down statues to George Washington? How about Thomas Jefferson? What do you think of Thomas Jefferson? You like him? Okay, good. Are we going to take down his statue? He was a major slave owner. Are we going to take down his statue? You know what? It's fine. You're changing history. You're changing culture. And you had people. And I'm in bold. I put this. And I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists, okay? And the press has treated them absolutely unfairly. Now, in the other group, also, you had some very fine people, but you also had troublemakers. And you see them come with the black outfits and with the helmets and with the baseball bats. You had a lot of bad people in the other group, too. And then Mitt Romney comes out and says, there's a false moral equivalency. You cannot compare Nazis with Marxists. That was just why I laughed, that a Marxist like Bernie Sanders is warning about authoritarianism. Marxism was the major driver of democide in the 20th century. Hitler was a choir boy compared to Mao Zedong. He was a Boy Scout compared to Stalin. There's just a racial component there. So it has extra sensitivity. The Nazis, of course, were horrible. But as a matter of fact, as a total number of murders, Marxism was the main driver of democide, which for people who don't know is death by government. Democide is death by government. Left-wing statists, by far, killed more people in the 20th century than anything. Not just other ideologies like Hitler, who was also a socialist, by the way. We paint him as right-wing because Uncle Joe, we call Joe Stalin Uncle Joe. He was a freaking monster. So we couldn't put them in the same category. So we needed something. We needed some way to justify the use of a monster to help us. This is one of the most dangerous, egregious lies that has been spouted by Democrats over the last 3 years. And by the way, what he said there is prophetic. Because the journalists, the arrogant, condescending journalists at that press conference and later who would all go on TV and opine and spin the false fake news like Jim Acosta and the rest of them, would try to separate. They would try to separate the George Washingtons and the Robert E. Lees and the Christopher Columbuses. And Trump said, watch, mark my words, they'll go after them too. Are we not there now? Are we not there now? Ulysses S. Grant was toppled. He was literally the counterpart to General Robert E. Lee. Come on, folks. I mean, really. I am not going to be led to believe that the former First Lady did not know that she's spouting, fake news, that is dangerous. It's not just untrue, it's dangerous. Remember, Michelle, under your husband, a city burnt to the ground over a lie? Eric Holder did everything in his power to try to support that fake narrative. But Michael Brown never put his hands up. He never said, don't shoot. What he did do was assault a police officer and try to take his firearm. I mean, this is just completely outrageous. And then cue the gushing white liberal idiots like Chris Wallace. Oh, what an amazing, impactful speech. What a powerful speech. She just called Americans who don't agree with her racists. And she just used the most disgusting examples of fake news to back up her social desirability bias campaign. Because that's what this is, folks. They're not asking you to make a rational policy choice, which is what elections are, have been, and should be about. This is a massive social desirability bias campaign. You don't agree with me, you're a racist. You don't think that the rioting in the streets are justified, you're a racist. You feel bad for the business owners, including minority business owners, who've had their businesses burned in Minneapolis, in Seattle, in Portland, in New York City, in LA. You're a racist. You're not listening to me because I'm a black woman. I loathe this crap. I loathe it. There are plenty of arguments over policy that we could have together. There are plenty of things, as you all know, that you could find to criticize Donald Trump over. I find them every day. But we don't need to sow hatred. We don't need to plant the seeds that will one day lead to us killing each other again to win a freaking election. Or maybe they do need it. Maybe that's really what it's about. They do need it. He says, the job of the president of the United States is hard. Laura, your tweet was great. And she said, you're right, Michelle, it is hard. And it proved too hard for your husband. And that's why we have Donald Trump. That's what led to Donald Trump. The failures of the John Kasich's of the world to make good on their campaign promises from the right, and the failures of the ideologies of the Michelle and Barack Obamas of the world that led to bad conditions. Everyone's to blame but them. Everyone's to blame but them. All right? So anyway, it is 12:22. Let's blast through some economic data. Since Michelle Obama said she was underperforming, we're underperforming. All right, let's do that as a last minute fact check. And when we come back, we'll take your questions. Whether you're from the right, the left, whoever, we'll take your questions. All right. And that is something I constantly try to promote over here. We are supposed to debate each other. This is America. We are not supposed to stifle or shut down debate using tropes and social desirability bias and other cognitive biases, the pressure of cognitive biases. This is not who we're supposed to be. And they want to hear, I don't know how many times you heard that last night. This isn't who we are. Are we rioters in the streets? Is that who we are? That's how we deal with our debates and our differences? One party that constantly has to rely on that kind of hatred, fueling hatred. All right. But like I said, we'll take your question whether you're on the left. We'll take your question whether you're on the right. All right. Really doesn't matter. All right. Let's look at one more thing. All right. So really, I would have went over this yesterday. So we'll kind of do this backwards. All right. And I see it's 11:24. We're coming up on the 30-second break. If we run into it, we run into it. I'm going to try to kind of blaze through this while we, right before the break. This way, if I don't, we don't. But at least I can leave some time for questions since we didn't go on yesterday, and I'll leave a little bit more time for you guys. All right. So building permits, Skyrocket Housing starts skyrocket in July, absolutely crushing the forecasts. This is today, not 24 hours after Michelle Obama said we were underperforming. New residential construction. That is the report. It's a joint report by HUD and Census. All right. And it's called New Residential Construction Statistics. That's where, but you'll only hear like housing starts, building permits. We always, or recently, I've been putting permits first because that's how this report works. You have building permits that you're measuring because that's how many permits did builders put in to break ground on single family homes. And then how many starts got underway, like they actually broke ground. And then the last indicator, which you don't really ever hear about, are completions. All right. So when you'll hear about it in the media, they'll say housing starts, building permits, or building permits, housing starts. You have one that precedes the other. Building permits, obviously, are first. You need to go down to your local county, whatever, put the permit in. Then housing starts are groundbreaking. They're putting the shovel in the ground, folks. Really? They're bringing in a big excavator and a dump, and the big bucket is smashing into the ground, pulling up dirt. Excavators, whatever they do. And then, of course, you have completions when they're finally done with the home. All right. New residential construction rebounds strongly. Further indicates a V-shaped recovery. Washington, D.C., BBD. New residential construction statistics for housing starts and building permits skyrocketed in July. Despite lingering effects due to coronavirus, many governments and businesses are operating on a limited capacity or have ceased operations completely. The new residential construction statistics report below is released jointly by the U.S. Census Bureau and the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Here is, of course, what you get. Well, you can look at it if you didn't hit the paywall. If you do hit the paywall, this is what people subscribe to BBD for. This is the entire series indicator. All right. This is the entire series data, for this particular indicator. Building permits are in gold. Housing starts are in red. Housing completions are in blue. Speaking of Michelle Obama's, all right, let's just play a little game here, by the way. Go to 2019, July of 2019. And actually, let's go to 2009. I'm sorry. January 21st. All right. And let's take a look at when her husband first started. Oh, what do I have this basically backwards? I guess so. Nope, there it is. January 21st, 2009 to the present. You can clearly see we're on the way down. That is not Barack Obama's fault. All right. Where we were in the middle of a housing crisis. Housing indicators are going to stink and then they're going to lag. But, here he is elected, folks. He's re-sworn in here. And the trend is flat. He gets up a little bit and the trend flatlines again. There is no discernible trend in the last 2 years of Barack Obama's administration until the election of Donald Trump. And then you start to see some kind of activity, but really not much. It's basically holding with very weak growth. And then eventually in this year, like I've told you folks before, housing was the fourth cylinder in the economy. During the Trump boom, we had 3 out of 4 cylinders really firing. Housing being the last cylinder. Right before the end of the year, you see this explosion. This is what really was painful for people like me who opposed the shutdown. This was one of the most painful reasons, or one of the reasons that made it the most painful. In December of 2019, we got a big pop. And the question was whether or not we would continue to see that. Builder confidence was roaring. New home sales were roaring. Even the pending home sales and existing home sales indexes were starting to show real signs of life. The National Association of Realtors was doing cartwheels. They're like, 2020 is going to be a great year. Everyone thinks the economy is going to slow down, but housing is going to make a resurgence and it's going to bring the economy back to where it was before at 3% under Donald Trump, maybe even, totally shock the senses and do better. And as we saw from the Bureau of Economic Analysis in the first quarter GDP report, it didn't fall 5% because we were headed for a slowdown like the speculation, the breathless speculation had suggested. The stay-at-home orders in the very end of the quarter killed it. we were going to have, what was the first quarter of Obama all the time. They were either very weak or negative, as they were several times under the Obama tenure. Donald Trump never had a negative first quarter until this. And in fact, he never had a weak first quarter, except for the quarter that still contains some of Barack Obama's tenure. Anyway, we see it pop here, and then January and February come, and they're booming. And it's looking like finally builder confidence is showing up in the new residential construction report, because builder confidence is confidence in the market for new single-family homes. So if builder confidence in the housing market index is taking off, which it was, then you would expect to see this report start to show very strong data. And it was finally happening. And then the pandemic killed it, if you can look at the 1 year. But there's your V. Here we are today. This is where we were. Everything was great. February looked like we were going to have a banner month in the next month. And the pandemic killed us. Now, again, that blue line is always going to lag. You see how it's taking now? We're seeing a convergence between building permits and housing starts. You want to see that, because it means they're both growing at similar rates and they're staying up. So it means basically it's sustainable growth. Housing completions are going to lag because they're not done with the houses yet, obviously. All right. So this is actually very normal, but you can clearly see a little bit longer of sustain, a little bit longer. A prolonged V, but it is a V. It's 2 months. All right. Privately owned housing starts, or building permits, came in at a seasonally adjusted annual rate of 1,495,000 in July. It's 18.8% gain from the June number, which was already starting to be improved. It was already showing improvement. Forecasts range from a low of 1.2 to a high of 1.38. In other words, the number came in not only as a beat of the consensus, which was 1.3, but way above the high end of the forecast range. There are more permits being submitted and being handed out, far more than economists expected. Single-family authorizations, they gained 17% alone, which is the vast majority of this indicator. Housing starts, they came in at 1,496,000. That's 22.6% higher than June, which was upwardly revised, by the way. That's huge. They are now 23.4% above the rate in July of 2019. That's huge. And by the way, I didn't show you before. Starts are 9.4% above on a year over year. That's huge. Forecasts for starts were a low of 1.169 to a high of 1.32. The consensus was 1,240,000. So again, not just above the consensus, but above the high end of the forecast range, meaning far more than economists expected. This was an eye-popping report. And by the way, contributing to some of the market gains, the markets are at the NASDAQ hit an all-time high. The Dow is setting up. The next goal obviously was 28 in the start of the week. Right? Anyone's got a 401k, you can look. You've recovered most of your losses. Housing completions. In July, they came in at 1,280,000. There is no forecast for housing completions, but that's 3.6% above the revised upwardly in June rate of 1,236,000. That's now 1.7% above the July 2019 rate year over year. No forecast, but it's a lagging indicator. They're going to explode next month, Laura, or 2 months, 3 months, because it lags. They're going to explode, all right? And just as a last thing here, folks, to get through this, housing is primed to lead the economic recovery. I'm beating this like a dead horse, but I'm doing it for a reason. The housing market index on Monday reported builder confidence rose unexpectedly, another 6 points to 78. That matches the all-time high and that's for August, matches the all-time high and far surpassed the consensus. A reading above 50 is positive. A reading below is negative. New home sales also soared 13.8% for the month of June to 776,000. That easily beat the consensus and was the highest level since before the Great Recession. You have to go back to July 2007. And by the way, the all-time high for the housing market index, you have to go back to the 90s. That 78 reading, you have to go back to the 90s. The month of May was revised up for new home sales to 682,000 despite everything being shut down. New home sales have shown basically no impact from the pandemic. But I ask you, how much higher would they have been if, one, we never shut down, and two, Democrats and Democratic governors and mayors have not used these stay-at-home orders to hurt the economic recovery to help Joe Biden's chances in November? And she has the nerve to talk about underperforming? The Empire State Manufacturing Survey, it grew, came out yesterday, came in at 3.2, down from 17 and change. That's because of Cuomo. Pending home sales, they surged more than 3 times the consensus. 16.6% in June after soaring 44.3% in May. As a result of the stronger than expected recovery and growth in the housing market, the National Association of Realtors raised its forecast for the market for the year. And I'm ending it there. But that's all great and solid. But how much more would it have been? And I'm glad, and I want to see it continue. I'm simply saying, how dare she say underperformed? How dare she? Right? The nerve of this woman.
The irony of it, though.
The nerve. Your husband would have cut off his left arm for numbers like that. He never got them. You're right. And Laura's right. The job, she was right to say the job of president is a difficult one. Michelle Obama was right to say that. And you were right to say too hard for her husband and Joe Biden, because they never came close to growth like this. Never. He didn't inherit anything. See the first 30 minutes of the episode. All right. As promised, I'm going to take a 30-second break. Laura's got a lot of questions. We'll get to your questions. I'm going to try to do a bit of a lightning, and Laura has been yelling at me to try to make these answers shorter to fit more questions in. But sometimes you guys ask really great questions, and I just got to be thorough about it. All right, so there we have it. She says. All right, 30 seconds for a drink of water, folks. 30 seconds. Be right back. All right, we're back from the 30-second break for my water break. All right. Anyway, thanks for watching Inside the Numbers, folks, with the People's Pundit Tuesday, August 18th. All right, day 2 of the convention, which we'll go over tomorrow. Follow me on Twitter if you don't already, at Peoples_Pundit. Follow PPD if you don't already, at PPD News, all both on Twitter. Like the page, People's Pundit Daily on Facebook, and subscribe on YouTube. The best way to support the show and watch it grow is to subscribe to People's Pundit Daily, which you can do by going to ppdnews.us/subscribe. ppdnews.us/subscribe. Or you could just go to People's Pundit Daily and find the digital subscriptions page. Listen, we can't and never will promise that we'll cover everything that all these alternative media outlets cover, but we will promise that we'll cover them better, in more depth, and with more context and detail and historical accuracy. All right. So with that, let's bring in the Sultan of SWAT. All right. Go ahead, Laura. I'm a mute. Give it to us. What's the first question?
All right. Inquiring minds like Irish want to know, why didn't Michelle Obama ever mention Kamala, whatever you want to call her, Harris at all?
Woo! I'm going to be a little careful with this question, but listen. Let me put it this way. If I went to California without Laura and spend some time with somebody who was not Laura, and then publicly called her the sexiest woman of her profession, and again, not Laura, Laura's not going to like that woman very much. I'm going to get a roasting when I get home, probably kicked in the butt, divorced, and stripped of all my assets. And if Laura ever did come out to say something about somebody, like, she was asked to do, she's not going to mention that woman and praise her. It doesn't matter how much a political party asks her. Michelle Obama does not like Kamala Harris, and she doesn't for personal reasons. And I would have loved if Donna Brazile, who loves to give out secrets, would explain to Fox News viewers why it is that Michelle Obama does not like Kamala Harris. All right? You can use your imagination, folks. All right? But go back. I should have pulled that clip and anticipated that question. I should have pulled the clip of Barack Obama. You can judge for yourself. But there absolutely is, something personal there. That's a personal thing. All right. So let's get the next question.
All right. Witchfinder, does Chris Christie have a political future?
Oh, what a great question. And you got to give me a second there. Switch back and forth between mics. There's still no furniture here. Coronavirus has 10 weeks for furniture. Okay. Chris Christie, that's a great question. I would say, especially since a lot of that Bridgegate, that stuff that's come out now has been completely debunked about his total role in it. And also a lot of that was ridiculous to begin with. If you live in New Jersey, if you are familiar at all with New Jersey politics, then you know that it's dirty. So to get a Democrat to endorse you, you're going to have to find pictures of him with like a 16-year-old girl. Maybe the mob, will go break someone's leg, that loved one. That's how it works in the state of New Jersey. I mean, they like play with you like you're naive and you're stupid. It's one of the dirtiest political states out there. So some of this was always ridiculous. Like, oh, big deal. He shut down a lane by a bridge. That's nothing. All right. He didn't throw everybody's taxis in the Hudson. All right. Which is like, another typical intimidation tactic used. Right. So I would say it depends. There have been some really great political comebacks. However, he was clearly the biggest threat, and that's why they made this Bridgegate thing such a big deal. I mean, Bridgegate, is that any worse than, shutting down a lane closure versus denying the pleas of a State Department official who knew he wasn't safe, and then that resulted in the murder of him and 3 other Americans? It was nothing compared to that, but they had no choice to. Chris Christie is the kind of person who could make a political comeback, but I would say he'd probably need to run for senator of New Jersey first. He'd need to crawl himself back a little bit. And I think too, some of this may be tied to Donald Trump's political future. I know you're about to go do something else. Why don't you ask your next one?
All right. Big Blue said, I heard Fox polls had 24% Republican when it should be a minimum of 37%. They said, is this true?
So Fox News, and I just got an email. So, and Laura, well, I just got an email. I just cannot believe I just got, and I absolutely have to respond to them. So let's speed lightning round this puppy. I'll tell you guys about it tomorrow. All right. But when I know the outcome of it, but I got an email from someone that's like stunned me a second ago. All right. So anyway, listen, Fox News is one of the most abysmal polls in the industry. All right. Chris Steyerwald praises them up and down all he wants. The reason why they have it's not just, don't fall into the trap of how many partisans each of them are. It's who they're reaching and from where they are reaching them at. Right. So the partisanship being messed up is really a byproduct of how insufficient their sample is, probably geographically. And then because they're only reaching more upscale metro Republicans, their projected vote preference doesn't really match what's going to come in on election day, and doesn't match basically what we've seen in the primary so far. So they have a terrible track record, guys. You got to learn to take some of this stuff with a grain of salt. Already, the Fox poll is right around their final election poll for Hillary versus Trump. So they had this huge lead for Biden. It's now shrunk to 10. Same thing with CNN. It's now shrunk to 4. Clearly, there is a tightening in the race. They're hedging their bets. Even the CNN poll only has Biden up by 1 in the battleground states. That's bad. And they know that's bad because Trump's going to have very excited supporters. And then also because Fox, they only use phone collection. So they'll break that sample up between cell phone and landline. But as I've told you guys before in the past, different people participate at different rates depending on, and that's true of anything. But with data collection modes like live caller, live interview on a phone, you are going to get more liberal of a sample. Academics, they love to talk. I mean, they have time in between a class or whatever it is. They want you to hear about their very informed opinion. I mean, they are so willing to take the survey. They'll stay on the phone for 20 minutes. Working class people are not. So it's more than just partisan. And that's why sometimes you'll look and you'll say, how could Donald Trump only be winning 3% of the Democratic vote in this poll or whatever? Meanwhile, you know he's going to get 12 or 13% in Pennsylvania. That's going to happen. All right. Whether he wins or loses. I hate to break it to some of these Democratic consumers who think that this is like reality. It's not. And he's going to win the overwhelming majority, will win a historic share of his base. We have seen the evidence for this now for years in his approval rating, but also now we have vote shares to back it up. He will. John Kasich is not going to be a representative sample, but they're calling the John Kasichs because it's those John Kasich Republicans that are very willing to talk. In the past, and I'll wrap this up like this, it is not uncommon to get a very liberal slanting raw sample from phone interviews. We get it all the time, 60-40, right, Laura? 60-40. So we have to oversample because we have to make sure we get enough representative to understand what men's vote preferences really are. It's even worse now. It's 65-70 with some of these data collection modes. Even now with the online panels too, unfortunately, they make it more expensive because we have no choice. We absolutely have to check them against the voter file. I mean, we just do. All right, let's get another one in here.
All right. Justin Baker, if we did not have the lockdown, how high would his numbers be?
That's a great question. I don't think this would even really be a race. They would need these vote by mail things to cheat. I mean, presidents who are incumbents tend to be favored anyway historically, and presidents who go in with a solid economic record are reelected. There are 11 election cycles in modern America. With that as an example, they won in all of them. All right. The bottom line is they knew it. I know it. They knew it. It doesn't matter what the hell his approval rating was in the NBC Wall Street Journal poll. If we were going into this thing with 2.5%, 3% growth, Donald Trump was going to win. Joe Biden was going to lose, and that's it. He would have been beyond the margin of fraud. Maybe it would have looked closer, but no amount of ballots could have been filled in. That's just history. That's just historical truth. So I would say this is why it hurt him so bad. Donald Trump ran against the Dr. Fauci's. He ran against even I like Deborah Birx, but he ran against the experts who were hurting the working class, not just healthcare experts, policy wonks, trade experts, you name it, immigration people, you name it. These so-called smart people who were hurting communities all over the country. And those were the working class people who finally said, maybe my vote will matter again. Donald Trump inspires me to go out and vote. Maybe he will look out for us the way these other lying scumbags have promised to do for years, but don't. It is those people, they are the people that feel betrayed by this move. And that's why it was so dangerous. All right. And that's, by the way, there's a lot more to the senior thing, Laura, than everybody's like, oh, it's just they're scared of getting coronavirus. Obviously, we now know that's not true. There are some that, of course, and they're not just a few, but it's not just that. Some of these older people don't buy this crap at all that we're talking to. They don't buy it at all. And they're like, he did exactly what he said Hillary Clinton would do, right? And it's the optics of it. He got duped by the experts.
Evan Bliss has a wonderful 3-part question. What is the largest margin by which Trump can lose the popular vote and still squeak out an electoral college victory? Wait, When do you think public polling will show a tight race? And when will Trump receive a meaningful convention bump?
Okay, so I'm not sure either one of them will get a meaningful one, not a real one. I mean, the media is going to show a convention bump for Biden and Harris anyway because they're garbage. All right, okay, and I'm not sure. It depends what Trump does. I think Trump is going to do something different than we're going to see out of the Democrats. And if you're a Trump supporter, you better hope so, because this is horrible. Donald Trump is an entertainer. What he did in 2016 was just, even the way he walked out, it was different than a traditional Republican. And I have a feeling he will do something different. He's not going to pre-record his message either. So I am reserving judgment on that. If he does get a bounce, it usually happens within a few days. They have a disgusting habit of timing polls that fit the Democrat narrative. So it's not just how they release these polls and conduct them. It's when they conduct them that really skews some of the true narrative. We're already seeing a race tighten, which I'm a little bit shocked in. Again, 10 points off of CNN. Most of that was Trump gaining, then Biden losing, which was for the first time. This is something I've always been warning Trumpers over. Trump's poll numbers weren't really going up and down. They were being pretty relatively consistent as a matter of level of vote share support. It was Biden who was going up and down that was making the race tighter or not. These last two polls from Fox and from CNN, even though I both think you could probably wipe your, with them and throw them in the toilet. What they show is increased support for Donald Trump and a collapsing support for Joe Biden. Even in the case of CNN, Donald Trump jumped 5 points. That's not a small jump in a presidential race. So the answer to that is it already is tightening. It tightened earlier than I thought. In 2016, the media polls really did not start tightening until late October, right? And believe me, I remember having a heart attack wondering why we were still showing a tight race while the rest of them were in left field. Like it really got to me, folks. I got to be honest. And Laura will tell you guys that. That crap kept me up at night. Am I missing something? Am I not? I just think they were full of it. I sadly can't have come to that conclusion. Part of it is their own polling methods, and part of it is they're dishonest. I just believe it now. It's sad, but it's true. So anyway, how many points does he need to get it to in order? Listen, in the polls in 2016, Fox poll was 6, the Monmouth poll was 6, the Wall Street Journal poll was 3, I think, at the end, finally, in the end. The ABC garbage poll that herded from Hillary plus 12 or 13 to within the margin of error, or one point before widening out again to 4 or 5 points. If I was Joe Biden, and I didn't have, and by the way, what did she wind up losing it by? About 3 points. And he still won the Electoral College. And actually, even though margins were close in each state, the Electoral College wasn't that close. I think this disparity is getting worse. And I think the census, which will come out soon, again, the 2020 census is going to back it up, because all the community surveys, Laura, they continue to show what is a larger disparity between the national electorate and what we see as a population in battleground states. All right. So I think it's only going to get worse. In other words, if I was Joe Biden, I would want above a 5-point lead. If it turns into a 3 to 5 point lead, and that's what we start to see on election day, it is very possible Joe Biden will still lose the Electoral College. If it's 2 or 3 point leads, he's going to lose the Electoral College. I really think that. Unless it is possible that, this election result could skew that overall trend. But in the future, and as time goes on, I am highly, highly confident that this disparity will grow. All right. So to answer the question, I would want, if I was Biden, to have a bigger than 5-point lead. I really would. Okay. Otherwise, I'd be nervous. Very, very nervous.
All right. So I have 2 people that are asking the same question, J.K. Locke and Michael Thomas. What do you think of the CNN poll? Can you do a quick analysis? And Michael said it's weird, 10-point gain for Trump. Are there actually 15 battleground states?
Another great question, really. So in 2016, there was only like 8. All right. My argument was, and we polled a lot more than that. So the reason why our national poll, and this helps to answer your question, was a little bit off from what I would have liked to see, is because I still traditionally waited for California and New York, whereas it became a much larger disproportionate share, and not just the share, but the lopsided margins. All right. And I was doing what old pollsters did. I wasn't listening to myself, my own suspicions, what I was just talking about with you. The disparity was growing, but I was trying to stay within more of the industry norm. But I still peeled out of the national sample larger number of battleground states because Minnesota is a battleground state. Virginia is, I don't believe anymore. We did poll it, but it was pretty clear that it was it tightened at the end, by the way. But it was pretty clear that Democrats still had a pretty key advantage there. They changed what Virginia looks like. The old Dominion is now the new Dominion, right? But with that, there have been other states that have come to the forefront that nobody ever considered a battleground state before. Maine is a battleground state. Even Colorado still is a battleground state. It could happen in the event that somebody had a good election on the Republican side. I don't think New Mexico is a battleground state. Not yet. Can it be in the future? Yes. If Republicans continue to open their arms to working class Hispanics, it could absolutely be. But the population needs to age a little bit more. All right. It's young, like Colorado, which really throws off, the Republicans' chances. Still, though, Colorado is a battleground state. Georgia is getting to be more of a battleground state, but I don't think that Democrats are there yet. Arizona is legitimately a battleground state now. Again, I still don't think the polls, I have no confidence in them. I think ultimately Maricopa County will be difficult for Joe Biden to win unless Republicans stay home. All right. Which, do you see that happening? I don't. All right. Nevada is still a battleground state. So yes, depending on how you're counting them, there really should be at least 13 battleground states, potentially 15 in a very tight election. North Carolina, we could still consider it a battleground state, but there is no doubt it leans Trump. The polls are bogus. It's hard to poll North Carolina, and they still can't figure out what they got wrong. And I thought I had it again because in 2014, I did not listen to myself and my own data. I allowed the media polls to skew our Tillis versus Hagen rating on the model. And they over, what's the word I'm looking for, Laura? They outweighed our own data, which showed it was going to be like a Tillis +1 or Tillis +2 in historical. So I thought I had it in 2014. And I'm like, I think I know what they're doing wrong. I'm pretty confident I got it right. And then in 2016, I did basically what we did in 2014, and I came real damn close. I mean, within tens of percentage points. So I'm pretty sure I know what they're doing wrong now, and they're still doing it. All right. So that is a battleground, but more so on the local level. So, right, 13 to 15, depending on what you're counting. All right.
Lamp Crow wants to know what is it that makes the Obamas way more than other former first families so arrogant, self-absorbed, and entitled?
Oof, that's maybe not the best question for me, but all I can do is tell you Barack Obama was raised, look at his experience and his parents, okay? And then despite him being able to blend in with the traditional African-American community, he is a chameleon. He is a good chameleon. He really didn't come from them, right? So he came from a very snobbish Hawaii class. And then only when he moved to Chicago did he learn how to blend in with, your very typical church-going African-American Democrats, but he didn't hang around always with them. He learned from the white liberal viewpoint and especially in Chicago, on the Upper East Side. I mean, with that comes with the snobbish, almost San Francisco-like kind of attitude. Michelle Obama was, some of the stuff that I hear about her background, like we're supposed to feel, that is ludicrous. The Obamas had it better than many people that they say are oppressed, or oppressing them, or did oppress them. throughout their experiences growing up. Now, I can never talk what it's like about being a black man or a black woman. I'm a white man. But I can say that Barack Obama had a lot more opportunities in life than either Laura or I did. All right. But they come from that element of society where they're, taught to be like that. Michelle Obama really never worked for a thing in her life. Can I be real here? She never worked for anything in her life. Even the cushy job at the hospital, folks, as the administrator, she was essentially given that. She has a very strong disdain for America, despite what you heard from her speech. Actually, I think if you know what to listen for, you could hear her disdain for America pretty clearly in that speech last night. But she pretends that we're of great national character and this doesn't jive with us, But the bottom line is they aren't really what they claim to be. And in fact, they've had much more better experiences in life and more opportunities than many of you listening to the show right now, including myself who's conducting it. That's just the reality. And like most people who have lived experiences like that, they look down on you. They think you're lesser than them or stupid. And that's just the way it is. And I would say, I'm not sure that other first families aren't like this. The Bushes are pretty snobbish people, folks. All right. Yeah. GW, not so much, but the Jeb and the father, and Barbara was very, very different than them as a personality, but they still, like Prescott, folks. Prescott. Who the hell is named Prescott? I mean, somebody who thinks they're royalty, right? That's the Prescott Bush lineage. And then the Clintons, of course, they're just also like Bill, at least, is very good at making you think he's one of them, but he's not, So I just think the Obamas are more overt about it, Laura, because of where they come from. And you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They just don't care as much. They don't. Bill Clinton was Arkansas. George W. Bush later was Texas, even though really, where are they? Maine, but upper crust Maine, right? All right, let's rock on. Skull and Bones, baby. Skull and Bones.
All right. Jack Lawton, he wants to know thoughts on YouGov polls showing Trump up by 7. Weird that they have a bigger lead than ever. The Trafalgar poll. Was Texas actually even ever in play this cycle?
No. That's it. No. And if you look at Joe Biden's own polling, it shows clearly North Carolina and Texas are out of reach. So are Georgia, although they are spending money there because they want Donald Trump to defend it. All right. They're actually doing some smart stuff, which I'm a little bit shocked because he's such an idiot. But bottom line is, during the History Channel, Laura, right, we're watching Biden plays to that. Those are Trump voters, potential Trump voters. During those American Picker shows, those are Trump voters. Pawn Stars, those are Trump voters. But also during Shark Week, right? So he nailed Shark Week on Discovery Channel, which you think more intellectual people watch. Biden is trying to make him defend. All right. And he knows Wall Street, you guys will see soon. Wall Street and K Street in the last month have really opened their wallets to Biden to allow him to play catch up with cash on hand. He will vastly outraise Donald Trump. And that's because China, their friends on Wall Street, they are going to, if you thought the disparity was big during 2016, wait till you see it now. They want to put him on defense so he can't go on offense, because when you're in politics, when you're defending, you're losing. So he's in Arizona today and he will have to defend Arizona for sure. All right. But Texas is not there yet. They lied about Beto O'Rourke and painted a picture of Beto O'Rourke that was just not true. If the rematch was held today, Ted Cruz would kill Beto O'Rourke. However, don't put stock in YouGov when they're showing bad results for your side. Don't put stock in them when they're showing good results. I actually think sometimes a broken clock is right twice a day, and about a Trump 7 to 10 point victory in Texas is probably what I would look out for too, unless he has a very bad election. All right. But just demographically, they're not there yet. And Trump's numbers with Hispanics have gone up so much that Biden, yes, he's making gains with the white vote, but if Trump's really going to get numbers like that, he can't make enough gains. There aren't enough white people willing to vote Democrat. It's just not in a state like Texas. All right. And Anglos, which they're called in Texas, tend to vote heavily for the Republican candidate. And if Trump really did increase his numbers like that, then it's just not realistic. In the future, it will be, and it will be checkmate if Republicans don't do something about it. Because Arizona, especially if they don't do something about it, it's going to turn into Nevada, and then Texas will turn into Arizona. And that's the way it's going, because the pattern is clear. These liberals leave these areas, they destroy, and then they go to red states and destroy them too. The pattern's getting pretty obvious. All right. The only thing keeping Republicans in play in Arizona and Texas are red voters who are leaving blue states. They're trying to like offset some of that. And then there seems to be this working class Hispanic share that it really is giving both Donald Trump and Republicans another look. That is real. And then I would say this as a last thing, again, with YouGov, I would never use, and they wait at the community survey. That's where they start, the current population survey. They start there, and then they try to post-stratify an electorate. I mean, if you read it, it's a real dance, guys. And it really, what it is, to dummy it down, is it statisticians speak for, we don't have a voter file sample. All right. So we're trying to take a sample of adults and make it look, by doing post stratifications, make it look like a voting electorate. That doesn't work. I mean, can it work? Like I said, can a broken clock be right twice a day? Sure. But I think YouGov's results have shown pretty conclusively why it doesn't work. I mean, they're wrong far more than they're right. Right? Mike Braun was not going to eke out a win in Indiana, folks. Okay. If you go back to 2016, Hillary Clinton's vote share among the youth was not that high, and the turnout was not going to be that high. Why? Because they're like, take this survey, get a Kohl's card, go get yourself some makeup. I mean, that is not a voter. That is not how you identify a likely voter. They don't even have a voter panel. I mean, it's a consumer survey. And you know what? Remind me. When we have more time, we're about to break out and run now, and end the show. But remind me when we have more time to show them the difference between a consumer panel, what it looks like, and a voter panel. All right, because I can actually show you. I'll open it up. I'll do what we do here on this show, be more transparent than everybody else, and I will open it up because we don't only have voter file databases, folks. We have consumer file databases as well, and donor file databases. I will show you the difference. You cannot poll a consumer panel and expect it to look like a voter file legit electorate. It's just not going to be. It's not going to happen. You're going to mess up. It's not going to represent an actual electorate. All right, let's get one more in here before I got to bug out. Okay.
I think you could do two, because this one's really easy. At Bluer wants to know, what are Trump's chances of taking New York? And
0. Moving on.
Yes. Lemon Minty, a few states are starting early voting September 19th. Why are we not cohesive in voting dates? Good question.
That's a great question. And this is something someone like me who has been arguing for real election reform, not Democrat election reform, which is really just increasing the potential and probability of voter fraud and increasing their chances of winning. I mean real election integrity. This is a big problem, and it has been a big problem for years. We're not uniform because we leave it up to the states to handle their individual situations. We need to have some kind, at least, of state standardization. We have to do it. It's a must. I'm telling you, folks, we do. We could do this the way I handle proxy voting for unions and corporations. And it could be very secure. Nobody will vote twice. Nobody will vote someone else's ballot that should not, because they wouldn't have the information necessary to do so. We don't even need this archaic thing. And election day should be one day, not starting in September before there's ever even a debate. In 2016, Hillary Clinton was saved by two things in Minnesota: early voting and Access Hollywood. That's it. There were huge percentages of voter remorse in Minnesota and in Wisconsin, specifically, elsewhere as well, but specifically in those states. Minnesota starts way early, way too early. And the argument from people in the media, like Dana Perino, like we talked about once, 2 weeks ago, is that, well, people who vote early are decided and they wouldn't change their mind anyway. That is not true at all. At all. We had huge numbers of people in Minnesota because when we get closer to the election and in states where they do early vote, we will begin to change the question. Not for whom will you vote or plan to vote for, but if they already voted absentee or early or whatever, we will separate them. Who did you vote for? Of course, totally different question. Those voters would tell us, I wish I had my ballot back. If I had my ballot back, I would switch my vote from so-and-so to so-and-so. And yes, there were people who said they voted for Donald Trump who would switch and vote for Hillary Clinton. They were just outnumbered about 3-1, right, Laura? I mean, it was overwhelming. People who wanted their ballot back wanted it back because they voted for Hillary Clinton. And then in the end, they were just like, you know what? Let's give this guy a try. And he would have carried Minnesota. He would have. I'm telling you, he would have carried it because that was disproportionate to certain areas where he lagged a little bit. All right, well, that was the one more, wasn't it? No, that was the one more. It's 12:10. It's 12:10. All right. Yeah. All right. I got to bug out of here, guys. I'll tell you about it tomorrow, probably, as long as I get a resolution. All right. So, yeah. Anyway, don't forget. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. You can follow me at Peoples_Pundit on Twitter. Don't forget to subscribe to YouTube before you bug on out of here. And don't forget to like the page on Facebook if you're a Facebook user. Best way to support the show, subscribe to PPD. You can do so by going to the short link, ppdnews.us/subscribe. ppdnews.us/subscribe. Or just visit peoplespunditdaily.com and you will find the digital subscriptions page on one of the menus or bars or footers, whatever. But ppdnews.us/subscribe. To those who have done that, thank you so much. We love you for it. You are obviously the ones driving the growth. The numbers, guys, in the last 2 days, it's because of you. We're growing, and it's great. We're having a blast. Number one, right? We're having a blast, and we're starting to see what was the point of all this to begin with, which is really to have a dialogue and to educate instead of what they do in the media, which is nothing anymore. They contribute nothing. They're the big media hate machine. That's it. And don't forget that hashtag, which you'll see on the outro. What's up, Laura? You're raising your hand. You got something to say?
I just want them to know that I love the conversations that are going on inside the chat rooms, even though not everybody agrees with us. That's okay. We appreciate all views, all likes, and maybe, we can convince somebody to the other side. You never know.
Maybe they can convince us.
Or vice versa.
That's right. And yeah, that was great, Laura. Yeah. I mean, she does. And believe me, she'll tell me afterwards how much, she starts to see debate actually happen. That is what we're supposed to do. That's what this is supposed to be about. All right. And yeah, all viewpoints are welcome here. All right. All right. Again, thanks for watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm the People's Pundit, Rich Barris. Guys, follow me on Twitter at Peoples_Pundit. Follow PPD News at PPD News. And you can follow Laura at Laura Barris, which you see if you're there. All right. And don't forget to shoot her the questions if you got a question. And she'll take them even after the show's over. Like, she'll see a question and be like, you know what? I like that one. I'm bringing that in. All right. So I'm going to let Bowen Band take us out. And we'll see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time with more fun clips and more of day 2 from the Democratic National Convention. All the best, folks. Thanks for watching. We love you.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head? Before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Get on a plane and take a one-way ride. Steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for knives to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette.